things about being in lockdown in Bangkok, Thailand, is that it is a beautiful city. It's like the League of Nations, in fact. Every race, ethnicity, creed and persuasion is represented here in this most multicultural of cities. And the Thais are famous for tolerance, and the great ethnomusicologist Terry Miller from Ohio said once famously to me that the Thais are the ultimate Unitarians, tolerant beyond tolerant, especially of lifestyles and persuasions. But I've taken to going out to beautiful local places that perhaps during a shorter visit I wouldn't have even discovered, and spending time in reflection, particularly in parks and in temples. And the temples abound here. They're really very much a part of Buddhist life. The overwhelming majority of Thais would be of the Buddhist persuasion. And I go and just sit and reflect the beauty, the quietness of it all in the middle of a great city, to find these places of repose. And I'll take you to one today and say a few words about the Thais and Buddhism, which really isn't a religion for one day a week. It's a way of life that permeates all aspects of society 7 days a week. Well, here I am at a beautiful temple beloved by the Thais. Prakachom Cham is the name of it officially. And here monks live very simply. Their final meal of the day is always 12 noon. All their food is donated by local people. They serve the community in a variety of ways. Not a building is ever constructed here or reconstructed or renovated without the monks coming and performing rituals that appease the spirits of the place, and that are a nod to the ancestors, asking for their permission to do whatever needs to be done. And the way Buddhism is mostly observed by Thais, it's a combination of animism and Buddhism, really. And everybody is looking backwards to the spirits of the place, asking for their permission to do whatever needs to be done in the place. Also nodding to the ancestors, acknowledging their presence here in some mysterious way, and then looking forward to reincarnation, making merit, doing good deeds, trying to ensure that the next life will be a propitious one. And in this society also, for the most part, there are no pensions for people, elderly people who have stopped doing formal work, and they're supported by their children. So every person is looking backwards, looking to the responsibilities of the moment, and looking to the future. And in all of that, the individual, the I, is very small compared to the West. Going to sing a song today called My Uncle Dan McCann, and it was written by the irrepressible Shaun O'Nolan, the self-styled Wicklow piper, born in County Wicklow, ended up in America, first of all in Boston, and then from 1931 until the end of his days in 1945 in New York City, where he lived on the corner of 76th Street, East 76th Street and 3rd Avenue. And he was a raconteur, he was a singer, he was a commentator on life, he was a comedian, he was a piper, and he was a song composer. And even though he never bothered to copyright his songs, he has a huge store of songs credited to him in the 1930s for the most part, and had a big effect on singers like the McNulty family, and more of them in a future episode. Never bothered to submit them to the Library of Congress. It was only after his death that an associate of his started to think about copywriting, and did copyright some of his songs. But among the songs he wrote was My Uncle Dan McCann, and it's on the theme of immigration. And as is well known, most Irish immigrants that went to America in the 18th and 19th centuries, the 18th mostly from the north of Ireland, and from the other parts of the country in the 19th century, in the pre-famine and post-famine immigrations. And nearly all of them went on a one-way trip. when I was doing the research with Dennis Clark and Kirby Miller and Hasia Diner for the movie Out of Ireland, which came out, a documentary movie on Irish immigration in 1994, we discovered that only 5% tops of the Irish immigrants that came to America ever went back to Ireland. There was nothing much indeed to go back to. And a lot of them didn't stay in touch. And we have songs about their experience, which I suppose represent some kind of a collective memory. This song was written by Shaun in fairly comical, whimsical style. That was kind of his forte, about an imagined immigrant from County Galway, a fellow that in the song is called My Uncle Dan McCann. His nephew pursues him out to America after he fails to stay in touch and discovers that he's a very prosperous Yankee man, and he's a congressman as well. Wouldn't we all like to have relations that were as successful as that? And he wrote the song My Uncle Dan McCann, and I've enjoyed singing it over the decades, and in fact it's one of the few songs I ended up teaching to Frank Hart, the great Frank Hart. Mostly the song swapping went in the other direction. I learned songs from the man we call the Great One in America. Going to perform this along with two of my favourite musicians, Brenda Castles from County Meath in Dublin, singing harmony and playing the concertina, and the wonderful Brian Fleming, who's from all over the place in Ireland, but currently living in Kinvara in County Galway. You could even say for the purposes of this song that he's a typical bit of a Galway man himself on the bowrone. So, with Brenda Castles and Brian Fleming, My Uncle Dan McCann. I've lately wandered over here to search for me Uncle Dan. He left the county Galway in the year of 51. Where he's gone to I don't know. I've searched this country high and low, but back to Galway I can't go without me Uncle Dan. Have you seen me Uncle Dan McCann? Typical bit of a Galway man. He came out to the USA in the year of 51. Well, if any of the old neighbours living here seen or heard of him anywhere, you'd oblige me if you'd help me find me Uncle Dan McCann. Let me tell you of me Uncle Dan, my God, he was a mighty man. He swam the river Liffey twice a day, and he ran 3 rounds of the Phoenix Park. He could dance and sing just like a lark. He wasn't afraid to go home in the dark, me Uncle Dan McCann. Have you seen me Uncle Dan McCann? Typical bit of a Galway man. He came out to the USA in the year of 51. Well, if any of those neighbours living here seen or heard of him anywhere, you'd oblige me if you'd help me find me Uncle Dan McCann. Found me Uncle Dan McCann, a very prosperous Yankee man. He holds a seat in Congress and he's leader of his clan. He's helped to write America's laws, his heart and soul in Ireland's cause. And God help the man who opened his jaws to me Uncle Dan McCann. Here's to me Uncle Dan McCann, typical bit of a Galway man. He fought all through the Civil War back in 61. He was supple and limber in every joint. He wasn't afraid of the bayonet's point. He belonged to the fight in 69, me Uncle Dan McCann. So here's to me Uncle Dan McCann, typical bit of a Galway man. He came out to the USA in the year of 51. Well, if any old neighbours living here seen or heard of him anywhere, you'd oblige me if you'd help me find me Uncle Dan McCann.